You would think that after one of his rabid followers nearly murdered Representative Steve Scalise at a charity baseball practice, that Senator Bernie Sanders would have learned not to try to gin up harassment of his political opponents. These are, after all, the same leftists who are trying to blame the January 6th Capitol violence on former President Trump because he made a speech in which he called for a peaceful protest. Yet Sanders refused to sign a letter from fellow senators condemning the nasty harassment of Senator Kyrsten Sinema for not supporting the left's $3.5 trillion spending orgy bill, unless the letter also contained language criticizing her for not voting the way he wants. Mighty big of you there, Bernie. And now he's written an op-ed aimed at West Virginia voters, urging them to put pressure on their Senator, Joe Manchin, to force him to support it. It was the typical Sanders class envy, socialist blather, claiming this spending, which he wanted to be $6 trillion, claiming that it would help the working families of West Virginia. Somehow it would do that by putting the energy industries that they depend upon to feed their families out of business, while vastly improving and expanding government, raising taxes, boosting inflation, and enriching Democrat cronies such as unions and the green energy industry. But I digress. Sanders also said that polls show overwhelming support for this bill, which means nothing unless they were taken in West Virginia, where Joe Manchin represents the people. But he says this despite acknowledging that the polls also show most people don't know what's in the bill. Sort of negates the point, wouldn't you say? Well, leftists are apparently so used to people caving in immediately every time they scream, "I'm triggered," that Sanders and others of his ilk really believe these harassment tactics will work. So far, they only seem to be making Sinema and Manchin furious and even less likely to compromise with people who are trying to bully them into submission, as you can see from Joe Manchin's blistering response to Bernie Sanders. In one short, magnificent paragraph, Manchin skinned Sanders alive. He said this: "This isn't the first time an out-of-stater has tried to tell West Virginians what's best for them, despite having no relationship to our state. Millions of jobs are open, supply chains are strained, and unavoidable inflation taxes are draining workers' hard-earned wages as the price of gasoline and groceries continues to climb." Senator Sanders' answer: throw more money on an already overheated economy, while 52 other senators have grave concerns about this approach. To be clear again, Congress should proceed with caution on any additional spending, and I will not vote for a reckless expansion of government programs. He then finished with this haymaker: no op-ed from a self-declared independent socialist is going to change that. Nice touch, reminding West Virginians who voted for Donald Trump over Biden by 2-1 that Sanders isn't even a Democrat. He's an out-and-out socialist. I doubt that the overage spoiled brats of the left will learn from this that their public tantrums are not going to force Senators Manchin and Sinema to buy them a big bag of candy. They'll probably keep doing it, and while that's childish and even reprehensible, it makes the two senators even more resolute about saying no. For once, the left's utter inability to learn from their mistakes could work out to America's benefit. In other knucklehead news, 13 Biden cabinet members and top White House officials are heading off to Scotland. The bad news? They don't plan to stay there. They're all flying to Glasgow because with inflation skyrocketing, Americans and allies still trapped in Afghanistan, the border a wide open war zone, the supply chain in serious trouble, and worries about everything from COVID to winter heating oil supplies, they all have to go and address the true biggest threat, the weather. Yes, they're all jetting off to another UN-sponsored climate conference, which, by the way, they could have conducted on Zoom without generating the many tons of CO2 they will. The participants will include Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, who just returned to his job, and boy do I use that term loosely, after he took 2 months off for paternity leave. Now, he's taken a lot of flack for leaving his post in August and not informing the public as supply chain problems with our ports and trucking escalated. With their uncanny ability to find a straw man and beat it, leftists accused anyone who criticized his actions of being homophobic and opposed to parental leave. Of course, both things are irrelevant. This has nothing to do with him being gay or whether parental leave is good. It's about having the sense to know that if you have a vital job, you can't just take off for 2 months without having someone competent to fill in for you. Apparently, nobody has been covering his post. Also, apparently, he knew that his post had been vacant for 2 months. Clearly, Mayor Pete is essential. Not that it would have been any better if he were on the job. Carol Markowitz at the New York Post has a good article on how he's been one of the many unqualified Biden appointees who seem to disappear just as they're supposed to be in charge of something that spirals out of control. I mean, anyone seen Kamala Harris anywhere near the border lately? Yeah, I didn't think so. Anyway, she notes that Buttigieg was made transportation secretary to reward him for dropping out of the presidential race and endorsing Joe Biden. And of course, because he said he likes trains. Markowitz writes, "My 5-year-old likes trains too. But just because he can say choo-choo with enthusiasm doesn't mean he can oversee the country's transportation system." I love that line. By comparison, Buttigieg's predecessor, Elaine Chao, was the daughter of the founder of a major shipping company and had an extensive federal resume, including being former Secretary of Labor, Deputy Secretary of Transportation, and Chair of the Federal Maritime Commission. So Buttigieg won't be working to fix the supply chain crisis that he knows nothing about. Instead, he'll be in Glasgow dealing with climate science, which he also knows nothing about. From Bernie to Buttigieg to Biden, the country's in the very best of hands. If you want to be in the best of hands, you know what you ought to do? Subscribe to the channel below and click the notification bell. And while you're at it, leave a like and tell me what your favorite Brandon quote is. And if you want more of my news, analysis, and commentary, be sure to sign up for my newsletter at MikeHuckabee.com. And it won't cost you a thing. That's going to do it for this edition of The Breakdown. I'm Mike Huckabee.